será?
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I'm your host, Matt. Well, there are other hosts too, right, Carneros?
Good morning. Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's good to be here.
And Artemis, how's it going?
Howdy. I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right, the three of us are going to take you through the last week of EVE Online, and we have some really cool guests to try to give us insight, first-person insight into what's going on out there. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about EVE Vegas and some of the stuff that's coming out. And we're also going to talk about all the action that happened while EVE Vegas was going on. And it's interesting, a lot happens when EVE Vegas is going on, both at the convention and outside of the convention. So we will be talking with Haiwantu from Snuff, who recently parted ways from the Imperium. And we'll be talking to Jeronica, who was involved with the HiSec, I guess the first Keepstar going into HiSec. So first, let's say hi to, and we'll also talk to hero of EVE Vegas, Commander A's. So in reverse order, how are you doing, Commander A's?
Very good. Happy to be here.
And Jeronica?
Howdy. How you guys doing?
And Snuff, this is just a sound test so people know what your voice sounds like so that when you're talking, they know like, oh, that's that person. So how are you doing?
I'm doing better.
Couldn't be more awkward. Not you, but that intro. So we've talked a few times, right? Because you ran for CSM one time, right? I want to. You did you run for CSM? Yeah.
It sounds like we're having connection issues.
Haiwantu, are you still there? We'll work on getting him back. All right, but that's the show today. So let's start. We're going to begin with. What should we begin with, guys?
How about EVE Vegas? I want to hear how Commander A's saved EVE Vegas.
What happened, A's?
Okay, so initially I was told that registration was open early, so I made my way up there and found no line, and randomly started talking with a couple of the volunteers, and happened to find out that CCP had pretty much everything that Streamfleet needed, everything that they needed for Project Nova, for all of the presentations, for pretty much every piece of technical equipment that would have made streaming the entire event possible was stuck in customs in LA. So, being who I am and working with the agency that I do, I deal with a lot of interagency issues and know a bunch of people throughout Homeland Security. So, I talked to a couple of the CCP devs, go, okay, I just need some basic information about it. Call up my guy in LA and, hey, this company really needs this stuff. I don't know if anybody's told you guys that this is urgent, but it's something that really needs to get out. Like, they're not going to be able to host this event effectively without it. So, they took it from there. It took a couple hours to finish all of the required processing and everything, but it made it out in time for a lot of volunteers to make it possible through the middle of the night to set up all of the equipment in time for the event. Funny thing is, I thought it was like 1 or 2 boxes of stuff, because like they were like, oh, it's just like the wristbands and stuff like that are missing, because I've never been to an EVE meet. So, this was an epic amount of equipment. Like, I realized how large the ask was the day after when I walked in and saw all the stuff there. It was truly a huge amount of stuff, but and it made it there just in the nick of time too. So, yeah.
Well, pays to have connections.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And why?
Thank you very much.
Why were you able to do that? How do you have these connections? Are you from a prominent
So
family?
I work as kind of an interagency liaison in a lot of ways as one of my many kind of functions while working with FEMA. So ironically, I actually knew the individual from last year when I was supposed to go to Eve Vegas, but couldn't due to the
Hurricane something.
due to the hurricane. Sorry, I saw my dog on the camera. I got deployed for Harvey, and then subsequently Irma and Maria to
Those
deal
are
with Surge
hurricanes, not
Capacity
people.
Force. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So Surge Capacity Force, we borrow other agency staff from around DHS, and actually last year we expanded that program from the rest of the federal government. So I happen to know a bunch of these people because they worked with me down in Texas last year when I should have been in Vegas then. So it was, it's kind of a funny phone call because, I brought up that, hey, it'd be really nice if you didn't ruin my vacation 2 years in a row. So they got a good kick out of that, and it seemed to work. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, it's good to have friends in high places. So what would have happened if you didn't intervene?
So, okay, CCP was looking at like plan B, plan C, plan Z. Like they had everything from let's take the company card and go buy all the equipment at a Best Buy to there's a guy locally, but he wants like 15 grand for it all. And he came back like an hour or two later after saying that and is like, yeah, I need it in cash.
Oh, great.
So they were like, yeah, okay, that's not a path we're going down.
No scam there.
Yeah. So there's they basically were going all sorts of different directions. There was a couple of cameras that they might have been able to use for streaming at least the main events, but it would have been dramatically less. They wouldn't have had the ability to promo any of the new games like Nova or the new software for the camera, for the in-game camera. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm really happy that was able to make it through because I know I had a ton of fun playing a lot of the new stuff that's coming out, like especially Nova. I'm really looking forward to that.
And we should talk about some of the stuff that came out or was announced. We'll do this really quickly because there's a lot of information on it. We want to get to the news stuff that's going on that players are creating quickly. Let's run through these. Crimson Harvest is going on right now. That event was, I guess it started off broken, right?
Yeah.
Depends on your definition of broken.
Very
Could have been just generous, right? What happened there? Artemis?
So, as we understand it, the loot table was broken. And so people were running through these sites, and what was supposed to drop very rarely, which is Dark Blood faction modules, so like enams, newts, nosses, things like that, armor modules, as well as a bunch of agency drugs, were dropping a bunch of them in every single site. So like in my corp, I had a dude running around 15 minutes, got something like 200 drugs just from doing these sites. And it was also dropping tons of faction modules. So people made billions of ISK in the couple of hours that it took CCP to realize there was a problem and then hotfix it. But it was nice because they were able to hotfix it without restarting the servers, as I understand it. So that was pretty cool.
That's slick. They couldn't have done that years ago.
Wild. There's also, they talked about how abyssal space technology, the stuff they use to create the abyssal space and the effects and all that kind of stuff is going to be making its way to known space, which is where everybody else, right? And one of the things that struck me as they were talking about it was the in-atmosphere flying, which was something that you could only imagine, except there was one video in 2008 from the, what was the expansion after Imperium Age? Quantum
Quantum Rise.
Thank you. Quantum Rise expansion. And in there, they talk about financial news, and then they go to this planet being attacked by a ship. It was totally like CGI'd or whatever, but it was the only time you ever saw Eve ships flying in atmosphere. So then, many years later, a decade later, they're talking about the possibility of doing that, and it was like no applause. It was just people just kind of. I guess it wasn't enough there yet, but I was inside. I was going like, they did it! Oh my god, they did it! So, well,
And that's supposed to be coming with the December release, so it'll be like a snowy Hoth planet, if I recall.
that's just wild. Guys, a bunch of other stuff. What else happened in Vegas? There's some footage of it. Well, there was the. I'll just quickly go over this. The Continuum of War Part 2, which was more like the Continuum of Coughing, because as it turned out, when I started talking, I had planned for everything. I had cough drops in my bag, but I didn't bring my bag up to the podium. Apparently, when I started coughing, the doors were open and a bunch of smoke came in. And that smoke,
Dude,
this is what I was told. I didn't see it.
It's Vegas. There's going to be smoke.
And so anyway, that tripped me up for the first few. But once I got going, it was a really fast, just chronological jam of all the stuff that's happened over the last 2.5 years. So check that out. It's on YouTube now. We'll have a link in the show notes.
No offense to your presentation, Matterall, but I do have to say my favorite one from the C Vegas, like player presentation wise, was Dunk Dinkle's How to Lead While Not Being the CEO. I think that was a fantastic presentation that honestly everyone should watch. No offense.
No offense taken. I'm offended that you said no offense, because that was a good presentation.
You know,
That was really good. I enjoyed that one too.
Oh, there's a guy that did something on multi-boxing, and he was just like perfect. His presentation was, flawless, except had a lot of writing on it. But it was my personal favorite was, of course, not my own. It was Wilhelm Arcturus, who is the Ancient Gaming Noob blog. Yeah, and he was he really spoke to a lot of stuff I believe too. And then there was. Eve Stream, those guys were fantastic. They were doing all this production work behind the scenes, and it was just amazing. They were literally a force multiplier down there, and they actually had a presentation too with a nice video that they showed at the wrap up about streamers, which was kind of funny and touching and all that. Great people all around. This year, I decided I was going to do a lot more sitting in and watching presentations, and Dirk McGurk was doing the opposite. He found his spot in the poolside cabana and was just gone like the entire time, except the parties. But he had a good time too.
And everyone knew where he was. He was plugged in and telling people.
Yeah. He was involved, but not physically at the spot. But it was cool. I think that this eVegas was, it's always what you make of it. And so this was pretty interesting. The Imperium people stayed at a different hotel. A lot of them did. And there was like 200 of them, I think, right? There were 200 at this dinner. I didn't go to it, but there was. So huge presence from them. But even they were saying like, yeah, this divided stuff doesn't really work for us. It's too difficult. So we're going to definitely be in the hotel that CCP picks, as long as it's not a bad hotel.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a hike. Most of us were down at the Cosmo. It's about half-mile hike there and back if you forgot anything. So a few of us did that multiple times a day.
Yeah, it was kind of like we'll have our fan fest when they have their fan fest, and then they can kind of go in between. But that didn't really work out. It's something like that. I mean, when you have that many people, you literally, and the accommodations are crap. You have to decide what you're going to do. So, okay, other stuff real quick. Project Nova was announced. There's going to be a beta. The people in Vegas are going to be able to get into that beta. Other people have to apply. And it looked pretty cool. First-person shooter type thing. It looks like Destiny. Yeah, it kind of looks like Destiny. And
The guys that work on that are all super excited about it and can't wait for us to try.
Oh, yeah.
Feel free, Carneros and Artemis, to jump in if you want to. I'll just rattle through these. Big news, War Deck changes. I believe there's some changes that are going to happen in a month, and then there'll be bigger changes, more or less a permanent solution in the spring, possibly.
Yeah. So the ones that are coming in a month, for those of us that follow this really closely, I've been part of the conversation for Vortex for like 4 years at this point. As a high-sec resident for a very, very long time. Wars have been just strangling new corporations because you get to a certain size, you get war decked, and just player retention just dropped. Like you couldn't form up to any meaningful size before dying off. So the new change basically says if you want to have a structure, you're war deckable. Until you place a structure in your corporation or alliance, you no longer are able to be war. So you can grow as big as you want as long as you don't have a structure, which means the groups that are there, some quick advice, at least in the meantime, take all of your structures, put them in a shell corp that is not in the alliance that you're in, and now you can't be war deck. So continue to grow and try and realize people's dreams in high sec, and hopefully you guys will make it to other areas of space, whether it be null or low or wormholes, if they're a thing still. I don't know. I haven't been in one in a while.
I was going to ask I want to comment on that, but he actually had to bail out due to bad internet connection, so we're sorry about that. We'll impersonate him as we get later into the show. Yeah, he wasn't able to recover his Discord. Apparently that program doesn't work for him very well. Okay, some of the others. So that's the war deck changes are something that it was on everybody's mind, as Commander Ace was saying, and so they've got some rapid solution. The thing, and we'll open this up because we covered war decks, but we didn't really press hard on the people who were supporting war decks, or according to some fans. But I do want to revisit that for a second. War decks. What strikes me, sorry I'm stalling on this, but I actually don't really know how to say this, but people have been complaining about this for a long time. CCP admits that. CCP does a study and says, oh yeah, war decks are really bad. People leave the game when it's on, and when the war deck is over, they don't come back. And the numbers were astounding, right? Like the audience didn't even see the most dire numbers. We just saw some of the numbers. So I have to ask, like, when they saw that, was there a big aha moment? Like, shouldn't somebody pay for that? I'm not looking for blood, but I'm just thinking, holy crap, how could it be so bad and you guys not know it?
You want to see a group that's in more denial? Talk to the war deck, like the war deck project as a whole. Like they don't seem to be able to wrap their heads around the idea that what they've been doing has been pushing people from the game. They are firmly of this opinion that 50-man industrial corp can totally take on pirate. They're T1 cruisers versus T3 with Logi and Falcons and you name it. Like it's.
I'm sure there are other considerations, but like for it to be that bad, for them to say this is horrible and not have known it, it just seems like somebody wasn't watching.
You can't expect people to be logical. Honestly, I have the same kind of denials going on in my head when a fresh batch of cookies comes out of the oven. It's like that's human nature.
What?
I was going to say there's also the fact that this new like data-driven thing that they're doing, it's relatively new. Like previously, it was a well-known fact that CCP doesn't have any better tools than the player base does. But now they're beginning to leverage all of the information, all of the data that they have from their servers, from their logs, from whatever, and they're using it. Like we saw all throughout every single presentation at Vegas, a bunch of fantastic graphs, new information, very well presented data that we have not seen before. And that's what I'm most excited about coming out of Vegas. There were tons of new changes, tons of new announcements, but the way CCP was beginning to leverage the data that they have, as opposed to just working on what a select few numbers of players can get into their ears or what they happen to know from their limited gameplay. That's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah. There's a wildly understated update that they've made that made it possible for them to get a lot of this data when it comes to player retention as a whole. Because a lot of times people will say, "Oh, well, they're just stopping playing or something like that, and they're just playing on their nulls." And not so much. CCP has the ability now via the launcher, because you can go into the launcher and set up all of your accounts to log in, and it can tell if you were one person. So all of these accounts are now assigned one ID, so they can tell, okay, all of these are one person. If all of them stop playing, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So I think before they could, I think there was somebody that was popular in the community. Her name was Mint Chip, and she later joined CCP as a dev for a different game. And there was like a thread knot of like, how could you do this? She said she didn't like the game, and it went on for like hundreds and hundreds of posts, over 200 posts. It was all 11 guys. That's all it was. 11 guys can generate a lot of noise using alt characters. But anyway, so Artemis, taking your point, and I'm glad you mentioned it, they have new tools, so they could dig up all this information. So it wasn't like they were just not doing it. They've improved their ability to look at things. Is that fair characterization?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair characterization. And there's also, like it was mentioned in the CSM minutes, when they did get this data out, they realized, okay, we need to make a change, but they were waiting to get information on like the business design goals of Vortex, the feature, before they decided what sort of rework they wanted to make into. And there was concern that was going to just delay changes way longer than it needed to happen. So I think everyone is really glad that they're doing this sort of interim hotfix patch type thing with the December release, and we don't have to wait for a full rework to start to see some changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, apparently it was shocking.
Vortex people are not thrilled about the changes. But
by the way, I'm confused. What are the changes that are going to hit right away in this next patch?
It's the structure. You have to have a structure to be Vortex.
Does it have to be in HiSec?
Anywhere, for now.
So any SOV holding alliance that has structures will still be able to be war decked.
Yeah, they could shell corp all of their stuff.
What was that, Carneros?
Just put a Keepstar in Delve, and then you can run around HiSec and cause havoc. No one's going to come out there.
So true.
They won't even find it. There's so many Keepstars in Delve now. Just kidding.
Well, because there was some talk that if you had said that if you own a structure in HiSec, you can be war decked. If you do not own a structure in HiSec, like a lot of null alliances don't normally own structures in HiSec, then you're immune. And so that would immunize supply lines to alliances.
It would be nice if they made changes like that, because a lot of these groups are still going to just war deck the large entities just so that they can catch the stragglers coming through the trade lanes.
Well, catch the freighters, catch the... Yeah. But the problem they say with that is that there's a lot of players that, will join a big alliance and, they'll be gathering their stuff to go and play, and they get caught on the way.
Yep.
And it's discouraging to people who are making transitions.
Also, I'll point out that if you run a nullsec alliance, you have no way of knowing if you have structures in HiSec. There's no. It's really hard. I have no idea where my people have stuck structures outside of like the core areas where we go all the time.
Could be sabotage. I don't even know where
my corp has structures at this point.
I have a scenario I want to run by you guys. You know how you can transfer structures to people, right? Mm-hmm. Say you just anchor an a retire or something, transfer it to the corporation in the alliance, and now you can war deck the alliance. I'm wondering.
Such a PL thought.
Yeah, that's something That's something CCP brought up specifically in their announcement of this proposed change. They said, hey, listen, we know this is an issue. We're going to try and fix it, but it's something we know and we're going to try and solve.
So there's no real solution yet, just...
They have not announced the solution, though.
Well, it turns the war deck into a $500 million war deck, so I guess it kind of balances out that way.
Yeah, ups the price, and you kind of play hot potato with the structures.
Well, you can, if you get war decked, you can't flip it out. Is that
no? You can't. You have to wait for the war deck to expire.
I suppose if you catch it in that first minute, you might be able to get rid of it quick.
And you can't self-destruct it or something either. You're stuck with it for at least a week.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you can start unanchoring it.
That would also take a week.
Yeah.
Well,
but 500 million ISK, you can find that in your sofa if you look.
Well, but you have to remember the alliances that are doing the tons of Vortex every day. I believe the number that I was told was it costs something like 20 billion, right? Because at a minimum, it's 50 mil to declare war. And so if you're declaring hundreds of Vortex every month, that adds up pretty quick. So instead of now 50 million, it's 500 million. You've just multiplied the price it costs them by 10 times. So I think you will definitely see a downtick, even if they decide to start anchoring Raichurus to war deck people.
Noisy Gamer is saying in chat that you can just not auto-accept Citadel trades.
That's not possible.
Is that built into the game, or is he proposed?
It's not possible right now. You can transfer it to anyone you want.
I don't remember seeing anything in the interface about that. Yeah.
So, Jeronica, I'm interested in your perspective on this, because the work that you do with Mogul, not only do you have sort of the markets in Amar and Jita, or pardon me, Amar and Odixie, but you also have structures that provide like refining, moon mining stuff, manufacturing facilities. Do you expect that you're going to see an uptick in people using your structures so that they don't have to build them themselves and be vulnerable to Vortex?
You know, I thought about that, and I think it's going to be a good move for Mogul itself. We already have deals with majority of the mercs in HiSec, so I don't think we'll get targeted at all. Yeah, I hope that people start using the public structures a bit more.
I don't know, those mercenaries are kind of like having a screen door in a submarine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame Pirate for what they did. If Test came in and went after a structure they're kind of defending, then I wouldn't really.
Wait, so what happened? What happened?
Fill people in who don't know.
Recently, Test came in and started taking over the markets in Perimeter, and I Choose You, which was a guy who had most of the structures there, and with Horde there is back as well, backing him. They had deals with the mercs in HiSec too, like Pirate, VMG, which is no longer really VMG, and a few other entities, I believe. But basically, I mean, if you're the Pirate guys right now and you see Test coming in with 300 or 400 man battleship fleets, there's nothing you can do with that. So, and at the same time, Horde already pinged out to everyone saying they're not going to defend or anything like that. So there's like no real reason to defend it, in my opinion.
You mean these HiSec mercenaries have a problem with one side being wildly stronger than the other in a war?
Yeah, I mean, what can you do, really? If it was a smaller entity, then yeah, they could probably defend it. But I think most people think these HiSec mercs are going to defend 100%. But it's more of just a deterrence to get the Mafia back, pretty much.
It's extortion. Let's call it what it is. It's extortion.
That's kind of how I see it. You pay the mercs to not shoot your stuff. That's basically it. You don't really expect them to defend.
It's one less worry.
Yeah.
Can we pivot and talk about what's going on with Horde? Because there's a lot of stuff, not only with the HiSec, but also Geminate branch area. We want to pivot to that, or is there more to be said here?
No, we'll pivot. We'll just say that the eVegas, they released other information about gates and stuff that's coming out. Check that out. You can find that just about anywhere. We won't discuss it here. We'll get on to play. But yeah, check that stuff out. eVegas, a lot of fun. Hurrah. All right, let's move.
So the situation with Horde is, I guess this goes all the way back to when the deal was signed to end the last big war, so to speak. And Horde Goblins particularly didn't like that they were included, but they had no say in it. So they basically told the Imperium, and they told GOTG, Sword Dragon in particular, hey, listen, we don't want any part of your deal. And so, of course, Imperium and GOTG said, fine, whatever, you don't want the protection, we'll write you out of it. They did so. And so now the Imperium has begun sort of shifting over their dudes, people who want to find content, hunt Rorks, shoot at new beans, because frankly, Horde is fun to fight. So they've been all shifting over towards Geminate. Right around the same time, Test comes in, says, okay, we're going to take over this high-sec perimeter operation that you've got. And also, because Horde was so unhappy with the way Sword Dragon and GOTG handled the war situation, they said, we're going to shoot GOTG. So they sort of, any standings that were there, they were gone. They started shooting stuff in Branch. And if I recall correctly, there was even like internal pings going around within Horde saying, listen, stop your care bearing. We really need to focus on the invasion of Branch. And since then, NC has sided with Sword Dragon and GOTG, so they cut standings with Horde. BL, Black Legion, has sort of joined forces with Horde, and so there's a meme going around on Reddit calling them Pandemic Legion, because Pandemic Horde plus Black Legion. But if you see that, it's not actually Pandemic Legion. And now we're just seeing what seems to be all of Nullsec and even Snuff, who is now reportedly a low-sec entity, just diving on Horde and kicking them down.
The only part of that I didn't think was perfect was the NC dot part, which is ironic because we got Matterall here who could, to some degree, speak to that.
You know what's ironic? That's the one group I never talk about.
I know. But I can. I won't get in trouble.
Okay.
Did NC dot just reset Guardians of the Galaxy or the Dead Coalition or just Darkness dot, or did they reset everyone except Pandemic Legion their normal reset after a big war? Because usually they reset everyone but PL at the end of a wave of activity when everything calms back down to in between.
Yeah, we reset all of N3 at one point, right? Then it just kind of run its course.
That was a long time ago, bro.
Well,
what did we do this week?
Okay.
What did we do on Friday and Saturday?
Well, listen, I'm on the outside of it, and okay. I can only speak from the outside of it, but someone leaked to me from Imperium that NC was going to reset GOTG specifically. And that was an interesting move because from the stuff that I'd witnessed at eVegas, it looked like Horde was going to be attacked on three fronts, right? You're going to have GOTG defending themselves and attacking probably, and NC supporting them, not necessarily taking an offensive approach, but just kind of supporting them, picking that side. That was the initial thing that happened before eVegas. Then it was pretty clear that SIGs were going to be traveling up and attacking Horde in Geminate from the south. Like that was just going to happen. We asked Asher Elias on this program, an FC for the Imperium, and he wouldn't answer, but he's quite comical about it. That indicated, possible. And then we were on air the week before Vegas, and that's when we had the live Keepstar sale to Vili and ProGod.
Totally not planned and scripted, folks.
Yeah, well, you could tell. You could tell by how excited I got, and how excited they got. But that Keepstar went right into high-sec, which was a surprise to me. That I didn't know, because that hurts Horde. So that's a third front. So you have three fronts coming at Horde. Now, what's happening at Vegas is those guys are backslapping each other and giving hugs and saying, we're going to work this out. It's like, it was pretty clear because I got some indications, or people were telling me, that like NC and goons were going to pile on Horde, which is unheard of, right? Like that's not something that happens. But in this case, you could see how that would evolve. They wouldn't actively work together. Of course, they wouldn't actively at the highest levels. Vince probably would never work with Mittani. That would just never happen. But the underparts, they have the same goal. They're attacking the same person. That could happen. It happens often. It happened in Fountain War, right? NC and goons were beaten up on Test, pretty much. So this kind of stuff it's not impossible. It just hasn't happened in the long. And that looks like the way it was being formed up after Eve Vegas. But then, just yesterday, someone told me that NC was actually not going to take GOTG's side, or they were going to reconsider that. And sure enough, as on INN, Boat was broadcasting live. He was broadcasting Sort Dragon doing his Soda, State of the Alliance. And Sort knew he was on. He was even talking to Imperium through it. And they had like 700 people watching, so it was probably good for him too. But in that moment, somebody asked Sort, probably based on the meta show before it, because they brought it up that it was going to happen. So somebody asked Sort live, is NC going to reset you? And his answer to that was, they're resetting everybody. They're going to be neutral in this. He doesn't expect to be attacked by them, but they're not going to be defended by NC either. That's the latest on what's going on, I guess.
That's why I asked you that, was from what Sort Dragon said. And I think they asked him before the Soda if they could broadcast it and everything. And he just was like, sure, why not? Spies are going to see it anyway. That's what I assume was his.
I don't know. I think it was kind of who's the guy?
I didn't ask him.
Okay. The Black Hand guy was in chat for Meta Show, I think, and he Sniper V or something. I should know who he is. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name.
Hyper Viper?
Yeah, Hyper Viper. And Hyper Viper, I think, has spies everywhere. And so he probably said, like, hey, they're about to talk. I'll project it to you. And then you could tell by Boat's giddiness that they were getting one over on Sort, and they probably pushed it out. I don't think it was like, hey, Sort, can we do this? But I also think that Sort didn't object to it because he acknowledged it and basically said it was fine. So yeah, that was, and that's kind of one of the funny things about INN, right? Like you try to be this neutral news agency and stuff like that. And then at any moment it could turn into, let's play this joke on this, other people. Everybody was fine about it. So there's no damage done, except I think the value of like, is INN a neutral straight shooter? And those are really hard calls because you want to entertain people and inform them, and that was a great opportunity to do it. But then if you think about it on the meta level, you're using like a news organization to play a prank on, an enemy. But that's really way, way, way deep into meta. So we'll come back. But okay, so Jeronica, you're, for people that don't know, you're a financier. Can you tell us some of the stuff that you've done in the last year that's, I think, really interesting, like setting up the moon mining for people and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, that failed pretty miserably, but...
That's why I call them experiments.
Yeah. My organization, Eve Mogul, kind of trying to rebrand to Mogul Financial. We try to offer things for people in game and out of game as well. It started out 2014 as a market trading analytic website. And we've been doing that ever since. But whenever structures came out, we started supplying and anchoring and expanding structures to offer services to people. We are one of the first market hubs in the Forge to go up. And I think right now we are the oldest in the region. It's kind of cool. I think we're the last one standing right now.
Yeah, exactly. The last one alive.
Then we did ECs, engineering complexes. We offer CTOs in many places. We're in the Shab and Botane, next to Amaranda Dixie. And we're in New Caledonia as well, which is right next to Jita. You wanted to know about the moon mining. Well, I thought that maybe we could make moon mining in HiSec a thing, make it self-sustaining, but ended up being a pretty big loss.
How did you do that? What was that? Like, what were you doing?
I anchored 60 Athenors in HiSec in 2 systems with the idea that there would be a new fracture every day. Came out to be an overhead of like 10 to 15 bill a month, plus like a 60 bill investment. We only got maybe 1 bill out of it in taxes in the refineries we set up.
1 bill per month?
A pretty big loss. So we unanchored those, sold them off, and we didn't come out too far behind because we built them very cheap. We bought the materials before the min spiked and all that, so we actually made a profit off the Athenors, but everything else kind of balanced it out.
So you ended up okay, but the idea that you could put down infrastructure for public use, that didn't work out very well, income stream.
It does in other aspects. Industry is kind of not there because of the formula CCP has. But right now, a majority of our income comes from broker fees.
I thought that was really cool because that's a whole another world of interesting gameplay where you create public services for people without any alliances, without any corporations or loyalties. You just create public services.
Yeah, well, I've been playing this game for over a decade, so I kind of have the political connections that way too. Like most people don't really bother me. They know what I do and kind of leave me alone for the most part. I just want to respond to someone in chat. Diligent
Sure.
Diamond. We actually had all the miners signed up. Everyone was ready. But the thing is, they made it so ABC ores were in HiSec too. So the majority of the moon ore that was mined was like Arcan ore and was compressed and shipped to GS. We basically got 0 of the refining. Everything was shipped out.
That's the thing. They didn't refine on your stations. They just took it away, right?
Yeah, they just compressed it and took it away.
So they killed.
We kind of planned this out like before the seed was like announced. So we thought it was all going to be just moon minerals and stuff. Like they can't move it anywhere. They got to refine it in system, but that wasn't the case.
So they came in, they mined the ore, and then they just took off with the ore. They didn't refine it to pay the taxes that you needed to keep the thing supplied.
Yeah. So
that they kind of, it's just like PvPers, like they overfish other players and drive them out of the area. And then they're like, hey, we're bored. Nobody's here to fight us. This is the same thing. You have miners that overmined the place and didn't pay the taxes and killed their opportunity.
Yeah. We were kind of hoping that the minerals would make it to the Satio, which was 2 jumps away. That didn't happen either. So, I mean, it was worth the effort, and now everyone knows that it's not worthwhile, at least in HiSec.
Well, maybe some things will change. But anyway, you do financial stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Plus, you probably have a fund where you have investors. And do you still have that, or is that a thing still?
Yeah, it's an IPO, and we have shareholders and all that. We have an exchange as well. People can buy and sell their shares. But yeah, it helped us expand quite a bit pretty quickly. Now
now you have what?
A good buffer of Liquidisk in case we need it too. So.
And now as one of the last men standing, pretty much, I Choose You got knocked out of the game. Were they a competitor?
Yeah, we were, I guess, friendly competitors. Previous to
not
this,
knocked out of the game. I should just say he was knocked out of the area, knocked out of the
out of the at least market structure circle anyway. But yeah, we were pretty much friendly competitors. We kind of shared the Forge. We both made deals with Horde. I think he was a bit more close with Gobbins and all that. But yeah, we have a Shab and Botane, and he kind of owned Heck and Renz. but I guess that's going to change here in a bit. But because his stuff there is in reinforced, I believe, as well.
Oh, why would they? Who's reinforcing him?
Testers.
Why
I think
would test?
Pro God Legend kind of said that he kind of wanted to go after him everywhere, I think. So.
Oh, because Vili came out. We had a special program, as you just saw. It was on screen just a minute ago. You can find it at talkingstations.com, where we interviewed the guy from I Choose You, who is basically another financier. And he was dominant. He was dominant in the Jita area, which is the biggest market. Well, he gets attacked, and his structures get destroyed. So his ability to raise revenue there is destroyed. And we asked Vili, who was leader of Test, along with Pro God Legend, why would you do that? And they said, we're going after Horde. Horde's our enemy. So it was very specific. They were going after Horde. But when they were doing this, they were trying to reach a deal where I Choose You would actually just say, okay, I'm not paying Horde the protection money. I'll pay Testix the protection money. And that deal totally fell through. And Pro God and Vili both decided they didn't like this guy. So now they're extending the damage to other areas, other trade hubs, where he does business. And now it's not just about Horde, but it's about Horde and I Choose You.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I think.
Oh, I hope so, because I just kind of winged that one. That's how the show works. It's all winging it. Well, cool. Now, one last question about this kind of thing from me is, how do you survive in this world? You're not an alliance. How do you not die from other people's wills?
I mean, we're pretty friendly people, more or less, and we have, I guess, a better ability to kind of talk to people. I mean, we have friends in multiple places that would be able to connect me with the right people to work out a deal, which is kind of what happened here. My, I guess, head of security, John Selp, was kind of the guy who handled all this. I was traveling during the whole thing. So he kind of reached out to Vili and started the conversation going. Whereas I believe I Choose You talked with him, and he kind of had a different approach with his conversation with Vili. I think what really helped is that we're not really backed by anyone. And Vili and Tess were really going after Horde in the north. And I mean, there's people who say that we're directly linked with the north, but I mean, a very little amount of the ISK that we make goes up there. We did have that deal with Goblins, which I won't disclose any of it, but the guys at Tess are aware of it. Yeah, we kind of reached a similar deal with Tess, and they like what we're doing. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. They kind of we kind of explain what we do, who we are, who backs us, who invests with us, and they're like, oh wow, these guys aren't really actually just a front for Pandemic Legion or Horde or anything like that.
Which is something you may have had the reputation of earlier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with our Satya, which is actually in a PL alliance. But we're basically just renting that space from them. And like I said, we have deals with people.
So you did reach a deal with Test.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Are leaving you alone, basically. Here's my question. Was part of that deal like wipe out my competition? Real talk.
No.
Did you engineer the destruction of your competition?
No, I thought about maybe it would be cool if I kind of did something like that, but that's just not who we are. We're not very vindictive and all that.
That's not your I'm guilty face?
No, I didn't do anything about it.
Too bad, because that would be very Eve, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I honestly kind of wrote the Satio off when I first heard about Test coming in. I'm like, oh man, I don't really want to try to push a deal through, because I went through this before when Goblins came in, and it's a pain and a lot of stress and a lot of sleep loss and all that. But,
are you saying it's easier to negotiate with Vili than Goblin?
God, really trying to put him in a corner.
It's fun to watch him squirm.
I don't know. I mean, it was. I think we're on the same page on more things. I Choose You specifically wanted to do a lot of extorting and stuff and kind of do things, but we've always, mobile itself has been for the people pretty much. And from my discussions with Philly, he's kind of doing the same. He just wants to have something up and help keep things stable. And if Horde doesn't get to ISK2, that probably is beneficial to him. But I don't really care about the markets, getting all the market fees and all that. My main focus is industry.
Oh, that's interesting. So you didn't live or die by financing. You were building stuff. So you're a little more insulated than I Choose You probably was.
Yeah, I guess.
Diversified.
More neutral, I guess, ironically.
Yeah.
Who knew that choice of focus was going to be useful at this point in the future?
Yeah, it worked out in the end. So.
Well, very interesting stuff. I love it when we can talk about stuff that's not just basically wars and pilots and battles and stuff like that. This is neat stuff. It reminds you there's a multi-dimensional game. But let's get back to some other stuff that's happening in, wow, where should we go? Like, we can talk about Snuff leaves the Imperium last, but can we skip over to what happened in Cobalt Edge? This is just super interesting.
So most people found out about this story because yesterday 4 Keepstars just showed up on the kill board out in Cobalt Edge, and they all belong to the same alliance called Mackinac Empires. And a bit of backstory, for a long time now, Mackinac Empires has been renting out in Cobalt Edge when they have been renting out there, and of course Hard Knocks recently took over Cobalt Edge when the DRF fell, at least fell in the north. And so they've been renting from Hard Knocks, and the allegation from Hard Knocks was that the leader of Mackinac Empires, and let me get his name straight here. So their allegation was that Gil DeViver was going to hand space in Cobalt Edge from Mackinac Empires over to CO2 when CO2 got kicked out of Fade, or rather left Fade. And so because of that, they saw this as Mackinac Empire's backstabbing, rising up, something of that nature, against who they're renting from, Hard Knocks, and reset them all. Said, we're going to burn your space to the ground, we're going to burn your structures to the ground, you're kicked out. And they have done that. So over the past couple of days, pauses are dying, ships are dying, structures are dying, and then 4 Keepstars died as a result. And we, of course, had everybody from the Holy League, if you'll call it that. So we had Hard Knocks, Skill Yourself, Laserhawks, even No Vacancies was there, just nuking 4 Keepstars to the ground. We reached out to, or I reached out to the Diplos from Mackinac Empires to sort of get their side of the story on this. And from their side, it seems like Hard Knocks just reset them out of the blue. They did not get back to me in time to respond to the specific allegation about handing space to CO2, but they have said that their stuff is dying. The majority of their corps have left, because a lot of the corps within Mackinac Empires have just gone on to rent other space from Hard Knocks. So they've joined Hard Knocks Associates, and other corps have gone otherwhere. But basically, the Alliance Mackinac Empires is dead, and their structures are just waiting to die. So that's interesting. Who knew 4 Keepstars were out in Cobalt Edge, let alone that they could all die in the same day?
Yeah, and all belong to the same people. What's weird is that this group was probably there a while, renting from whoever the landlord was, which would have been DRF at one point, and then Holy League kind of came in and swept out. Eventually, DRF was just too fatigued to continue fighting, so these Holy League guys took over, which would be Skill U and Hard Knocks, with Volta, but I think Volta merged into Skill U, if I'm not mistaken. And so then they just started paying those guys the fees for harvesting the area, and then they're dead. It's just like terrible.
Well, the space that Mackinac Empires has right now in Cobalt Edge, they got from Badfellas Inc., which is, as I understand it, part of the DRF back in April.
Drone control.
So they may have just moved into this particular section when DRF.
Yeah, I see. But anyway, that's not good for business when you're killing your renters. So something should surface to like explain that. Yeah, you got to build trust with people that you're not going to turn on them just to get fancy kill mails. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but we just don't know. Hard Knocks isn't interested in talking to media, apparently. At least the guys that we knew there are gone. The guys that built the first Keepstar and Noobman and the old leadership of Hard Knocks are gone. And the new ones don't want to answer calls. But, interesting. I love that kind of interesting stuff. So it looks like, thanks to inside a chat here, Adept for putting a kill mail, but it looks like an NC Titan just went down to snuff. So maybe that's why I-12 had to take off. He faked bad communication and had to go jump on something. And it looks like NC wasn't able to save it because something was going on. And the faxes didn't get to it in time, so it got killed. But NC is much bigger than Snuff. And if Titans were scrambled to save this one Titan, I don't think Snuff could have counter escalated.
Well, Snuff, the alliance is...
too.
Really?
What's that, Ace?
Yeah, that's a ratting Titan. Bosun and quad 800s.
Yeah, so he's probably making money, and then he got jumped, and couldn't get to him in time.
There was a comical event last night that happened in Delve involving a Titan. That for those that don't know, once you activate your Bosun, you can't turn it off. And another method of running sites is to smart bomb in Macarials. Well, Titan was firing off his Bosun, just started it, and 3 Macarials come warp in at 0 on the site, right in between the Titan and the site, and all 3 Macarials and the pods for 9 billion ISK die. It's quite a comical event.
That particular NC Ragnarok just now does have greased his pirates on its aggro table, so it was.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing was that he was trying something, so it wasn't necessarily a ratting Titan.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
He was experimenting with something. So, maybe true. Maybe
That's
not.
what people do. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
we sometimes tell our new Titan pilots to go try out their Bosun gun and try various things and go hit a pirate, hit rats to, just so you could see what's happening.
See what the result is.
Or, you want to see something.
Here's a pro tip for anybody wanting to experiment with their Titan. You want to do that on the test server where it doesn't hurt if he loses. Don't do it. Well, but I think if you're under the umbrella of a big power, then it's a little safer. Like, I certainly wouldn't do it if you didn't have some kind of backup. But in this case, the backup got triggered and wasn't able to get to him for some reason. So maybe he felt a little confident, Well, anyway, -1 Ragnarok. There's still 1,000 more. All right. I think that's all the stuff that we wanted to cover today. Do you guys have anything that...
We haven't talked about Snuff yet. They just left the Imperium.
Also, before we get to Snuff, we could say a couple words about Chaos Theory.
All right, yeah, you're right. It's Chaos Theory, then Snuff. Sorry, guys, go ahead.
Can Captain McLeod put the slope up on screen? They're not... They've lost about 3/4 of their alliance in the past month. I think there are rumors that they might be disbanding or falling apart or something.
And for those who are not in the know, Chaos Theory is a long-standing member of Guardians of the Galaxy, now dead.
Yeah. There was a ping the other day or something, or a notification. It might have been from Black Hat. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, but saying that they're
It's for the record, you're not leaking anything, Carneros, because it was posted in an article to Imperium News.
Okay.
You can talk about it.
Every now and then I'm like, wait a second.
I have to say, at Eve Vegas, I was talking to a lot of people, right? And I would talk to them and talk to them and talk to them. And I could see when they said something and then they quickly moved on because they had leaked something out that wasn't public yet. And this is not in the form of bragging, but when you kind of watch the game a lot, you can put pieces together. And so people say something that normally wouldn't mean much, but they know that that's a clue to figure something out. And that happened.
And if you ever see me on camera like this talking and I turn sheet white, it's because Marana convoed me. And that's a bad sign when that happens.
The head diplomat for the Imperium, huh?
Yeah.
She's like, zip it up. Although I have to say, you always look kind of white.
Oh, well, that's true. And the documents on the screen help me with my glow.
They color you blue. All right, Carneros, Leaker.
Leaker. That was Vanguard. I'm sorry, that was Chaos Theory. And then we could go to Snuff Deck. So they came to Imperium management and said, okay, we want to go back to being an independent low-sec entity who doesn't need him, and something like that. And we want an amicable mutual separation. And they came to the Bastion and said, hey, would you like our rental space in Fountain? And we'll say, yeah, we'll give you $50 for it. Okay. And then they flipped it to us. It wasn't $50. That was, and then there was no dollars involved. No dollars involved, officer. And then
just confessed RMT.
I am the last person to RMT in this game.
That's exactly what an RMTer would say.
Yeah.
You're right. Crap. All right. So then, they withdrew. I wish I'd given my guys a little bit more warning. I had people with nice clones in Snuff structures that I didn't hear about till afterwards. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. But that's okay. And then an hour after the amicable separation, Snuffbox hits a couple Imperium structures in Rakapas and Pinecast.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Rakapas is like a stronghold for the Imperium because that was one of the areas where when they were retreating from the north, they left a lot of stuff. And Snuff, that was their home area. That's the area where they live pretty much. So,
well, Rakapas has a different cultural meaning for the Imperium. I'll explain what it is.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
On the migration from the north to the south after we lost the last war, we had to go through Pinecasto and Rakapas, and that was the deadliest part of the journey. And Snuff might have been a factor in that. So we lost a lot of dingbats and good players both in Rakapas. People did things, and there was a lot of, can anyone put a Sino up in Rakapas? I need Rakapas. And there were a lot of Sinos that died there. Many Bothans and Sinos died. Anyway, we made it past eventually, but Rakapas became sort of a meme at that point on the way down, and it still gets talked about occasionally. So that's culturally, it's not about a stronghold. It's about that's where a lot of us died on the.
Oh.
And then you might, if you look at a dotland map of Cloud Ring, and you may notice immediately that there's an incursion in the Ton of Mercy constellation. But they did something I don't remember seeing before, where Snuff went in and, under cover of an incursion, reinforced the Aegis Sov structure. Pretty slick. So methinks, and I've heard a rumor somewhere that they although they intend to live low-sec, that they might be interested in owning some Sov in Cloud Ring for
And
that constellation in Cloud Ring doesn't belong to the Imperium. It belongs to a friend called Pen is Out.
Pen. Okay. You cannot see Carneros' face. It was a big smile after he said that.
I'm not smiling. I always smile.
What's their ticker? What's their ticker? Carneros?
WANGS. You're not going to trick me that way, young man. Okay.
All right.
That's all I can think of to say about Snuffed Out. I had to work directly with Tau AD as part of it this past week, and super smooth, easy to work with. You know, I have no idea what tricks they have up their sleeve.
We should say, for somebody saying that your microphone is coming in and out, we're going to get that situation fixed really soon. We're going to be upgrading some equipment around here. But anyway, we've been talking with Haiwantu during the show. Unfortunately, his sound doesn't work very well for Discord, so he's not able to say this himself. He wrote us to tell us, like, from their point of view, what's going on. And do you want to paraphrase that, Artemis?
Yeah, so basically Haiwanto is describing the reason that Snuff went through with this separation from the Imperium. And basically what they say is they're looking for content. In their eyes, the North is basically done, so the North isn't a very good source of content anymore, and there's no real reason to be part of a coalition because any doors that opens to reach large-scale content is gone. So they're looking with less blues to have more stuff to kill, and they're really hoping that they can enjoy some smaller scale PvP outside of sort of the large coalition battles, and enjoy that content until CCP makes changes to incentivize the larger scale PvP they were hoping to get by allying with the Imperium. So they want basically more people to shoot.
And this is a meaningful nullsec entity giving you an answer with no apparent spin at all. I think that's exactly what.
Yep.
That's exactly what they want. Is probably your last word that got clipped there.
Oh, I think that's exactly what they feel is what you're seeing.
You just said feel because I said your last word was probably want. But
I'm not trolling you, bro.
Okay, I know. Yeah, so that's big news, right? Because, well, it was really big news when Snuff decided to join Imperium. And I think the idea of joining Imperium back then was let's not get cut out of funding because Moon changes were going to make it so that smaller mercenary type groups in LowSec especially were not going to be able to rely on the income they usually had, which was moons. Because at the time you could capture a moon and just extract money-making material from it with really very little manpower. One person assigned to do that. You just offered the protection to the moon so it didn't get taken from you. That totally changed to a system where you have to actually mine the moon, which takes a lot of people that are interested in mining. And these little mercenary groups, I call them little because they're smaller than the big 1,000-person groups, they don't have the manpower to mine stuff, so they were going to be cut out of that kind of income. So for them, it was important to find other sources of income, and maybe an alliance with the Imperium gave them some area in Nullsec to harvest, to PvE, to create income for their alliance. And they used that for a few years. And now, in order to create more fun, which is something that they're now starting to have less of because of the things that were just listed, they decided to kind of make everybody a target so that they can now, keep their guys together by keeping them fighting and that sort of thing. It's pretty straightforward. I think the culture did that too when they sold the fountain and left it. This is not uncommon. In fact, most wars in EVE Online starts out with people just looking to have some fun fighting, and then opportunities start to arise because somebody shows enough weakness that they say, hey, we can really push and break these guys. Let's do it. And sometimes they do it just for fun, and sometimes they do it for actual revenge. And but really the majority of conflict in EVE Online is people trying to keep busy destroying things. So let's see. Giddy here says that the culture died, though. I don't think the culture died. I think the lead corporation in the culture went to Pandemic Legion, and they've been, and that corporation's been super active in Pandemic Legion, at least was in a few campaigns.
I don't think the culture died. I think they quietly took over PL.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't know if that's true. I really don't.
That's a half joke. It's a 3/4 joke.
Yeah, they haven't, because the people in charge of PL right now are pretty clearly Headliner is pretty clearly the leader of Pandemic Legion. Yeah, and that corporation.
He would have laughed at that joke.
Okay, Headliner, does he laugh?
He does.
He's such a good-looking, serious guy, right? Like he's
very handsome,
very charismatic.
It was good to see him at the Dre's party at EVE Vegas.
Hey, let's wrap up with a little bit of that. What was going on in EVE Vegas? Some of the astro-political stuff that was going on in EVE Vegas. Anybody catch that?
I'm confused at your terms. What is astro-political?
I didn't want to say geopolitical because that's Earth. I wanted to say astro-political, which is more, Space Alliance is talking, meeting, the sneaking around. Like, what was the? Let's give them the audience a behind the scenes at EVE Vegas look, if we can.
Well, there's a big party going on, and you got Permaband up on stage, putting on a great show with visuals up on and lighting and all that stuff. And then behind it, there's this just outside pool deck area with little alcoves and places where you can get table service, and fancy people go there. And you got all these people dressed up and having fun, and we're walking around, and you're seeing people and having a beverage with them, and hugging people and taking selfies together and all this stuff. I had a nice conversation with Elise Randolph. That was great fun. One joke at one point, I'm trying to take the CEO of the Enclave, Koshix, with me through somewhere, and he used to run Whisk at one point. And I'm taking him through, and we cut through a line, and he accidentally bumps someone, random person in the crowd. And I take 2 more steps, and I go, wait a second. Do you know who you just bumped? That was Tridget, the CEO of Iron Armada. Come back here, you have to meet him. And 2 of them were like, what? You're that? You came all the way from Hungary for EVE Vegas? Yes, I'm crazy. It was a fun conversation. If you know who these people are, that was quite a coincidence. But that's what Dre's party's like. You run into all kinds of people. I tried to use it a little bit as a cleanup opportunity for my friends who don't come to EVE Vegas very often, who had a list of people they wanted to meet. Oh, okay, let's go find that person. Okay,
Yeah, I was hanging out with a lot of people. I really like to hang out with, and if you have never been to this site, it's EVE Travel. God, I messed that up. It's Eve Travel, I believe. And it's Mark726, and he's been around a long time, and he's really a guy that looks at the lore. He writes the lore primer, but he also goes all over EVE Online and writes up the landmarks that you can go and visit, and created a website that you could visit, and you can literally, he has hundreds of entries, and he tells you all about the landmark and its history and the lore and stuff like that. So he and I spent a lot of time together. Ended up talking with Gobbins. I finally found him. He and I drove up together with Dunk Dinkle. So there's the three of us in a car. Fascinating car ride. Best ever. And then I finally found him. I hadn't seen him the whole time. And then at the party, we actually bumped into each other, which was cool. And then, who was it? Then Conman came up and was talking with Gobbins. And that Conman is like an NCFC. He is nuts. He is hilarious, which is pretty cool. And then a lot of nice people would come up and present themselves, because the Talking in Stations crew have their faces. So when we online, so when we go to these parties, people recognize our faces and want to say hi, which is all very cool. I met some very nice people. People have been playing a long time. People who just started. But then I was hanging out with the fraternity guys, Wind Spirits and Naros, and I like them both immensely. We'll get Wind Spirits back on here soon, and they were so funny. They're like, "Show me Pro God." So I was like, "All right, I'll take you to Pro God." So I was chasing Pro God, looking for him, and I don't know, they were all over the place. And I saw a creature who's from Test as well, but he's a giant, right? He's like 6'5", and he looks like a professional wrestler. He's huge. So he's easy to spot. So I say, "Hey, where's Pro God?" And he goes, "I don't know. I'm looking for him too." So then I put them together, and they found him. But there was a lot of.
I got to meet Wind Spirits and Norris too. They were a lot more approachable than I expected.
Yeah, they're nice guys. I love the way they talk and everything. It's they have a style of talking, or at least Wind Spirits does, which I really, really appreciate. And Naros was like super cool. I really liked him. That was a pleasure meeting him. But then there's, I'm talking to them, and we're just talking about stuff, and up comes Headliner, and then up comes Elo Knight. And, at that point I was like, I'm going to step away, because I know you guys can't talk if I'm here. So I went away, and there, if you can show that picture, McLeod, show it. That's, that's me and Creature Verpio from Test. So that's at the conference, not the party, but really, really nice guy. Unfortunately, he ran for CSM, and he just totally got tripped up by something he said a long time ago, which is really sad, because he's a great guy, really nice. But anyway, Wind Spirits. So when all these other guys come up and start talking, and I don't know if they're doing plans, or they just really want to meet each other because they're fans of each other. But I stepped away anyway and let them talk.
Well, hang on. You're burying the lead here, because you come home from Vegas, Matterall, and you say, "Okay, I've been in Vegas, but I've also been around this game for a long time, and I've seen certain entities having conversations with certain other leaders," and you call your shot. You say point blank, "Listen, I'm not leaking anything, because I only know this by watching people." And you called three things, if I recall correctly, to happen. So you want to have a chat about that, or are you worried about hanging yourself on air?
Put yourself on the spot, bro. Do it.
Sweat. Oh, let me wipe this flop sweat on my head. Artemis, always trying to corner me. And it's true that what I did was step away, because if I step away, I'm not overhearing what they're saying, so I'm not violating their trust. So then by stepping away, I can only describe these people came into contact. I don't know what they said, because I wasn't there to overhear it.
Nothing good.
Yeah, and that's what I described, saying, "Look, these people are talking intimately. I'm making the connections and saying that Horde's going to get jumped, right? Like, the goons are coming after him. NC might fight them. GOTG is certainly going to fight them. And Test is coming after them." And that was all pretty apparent in all the happiness that was going on in these little groups. So when and Pro God is like, "Where's Matani?" And I think Matani was at the party, but he was not really being social about Eve. He was talking about other stuff. But after that, Sunday night actually is when Pro God and Matani actually bumped into each other, and I wasn't there. I wasn't a part of it, but I was watching them, and there was a hug and a lot of backslapping and that kind of stuff. So, a lot of this is just players wanting to meet other players. They play this game for years and they try to compete with each other. So meeting each other is cathartic, to some degree. But that's a different posture when you're just saying hi and I appreciate you and all this other stuff. And when your Sword Dragon is hugging everybody, kind of like, it looks like he's kind of wherever something was going on, he was kind of there. So I'm sure he's working deals and stuff, because if you remember last year, he was doing the same thing. And right after eVegas, or during eVegas, GOTG attacked the Drone Region Federation. So I'm sure there was some stuff going on in that sense. And this looked a lot like that. So I was saying to everybody, look around, there's things happening here. This is a nexus point for a lot of planning that goes on that is actually executed in the coming months, and will peak probably in January. I stand by everything I said. I think the news that NC is not going to stay allied with GOTG, I don't know where that comes from, unless NC was just not getting was not interested in attacking Horde, which is possible, or if they didn't like the idea that it was being said that they were going to be allied with Goonswarm, which would be terrible for them. Like, I don't know what actually happened. So that website, by the way, that I talked about, Mark726, the guy that writes about landmarks, that is evetravel.wordpress.com. And we'll put it in the show notes. So check it out. Great website, great guy.
So, Commander A's, did you participate in any political machinations while at eVegas, or can you describe for the audience what a normal, well, apart from literally saving eVegas, what a normal experience?
So this was my first eVegas, first Eve meet altogether. So, in all honesty, it took me a solid day to really start understanding and comprehending what was actually happening. Like, I've been to conventions and stuff like that. I've been to Gen Con a few times, but it's completely different because, at those larger conventions, it's all these different games. You might find somebody here and there that plays the same thing, but at one of these events, everyone plays EVE. And everyone potentially knows who you are. Like, there's one guy who openly told me he's voted for me for 5 years in a row, which I thought was hysterical because that is a very, very tiny number of people. And to run into one of them that's not in my corp yet.
Stop hexing me, man.
Yeah. But it's really a great experience overall. I can say from a political side, yes, I did use the opportunity to start some discussions about vote trading and building the upcoming campaign. But we're still very, very far out from that, despite some people already posting their threads to the forums.
I'm glad that was. I didn't know that was your first eVegas, so it was cool to see you there. For some reason, I thought you'd gone to other ones.
I did try and make it last year, but had some hurricanes get in the way.
Yeah. Oh, I want to say hi to Chocolate Rain, who was there, and she's very lovely in real life, and she's very, very social with people and stuff. So she was running around saying hello to people. She's very popular there too. And Dirk McGurk was a crazy raging partier there, and just like most people, really. And who I didn't hang out with much was you, Carneros. What happened?
I was there. I was all over the place, having a blast.
Yeah, we're showing some highlights now. It's a fun time. I actually spent a lot of time with Brisk, which was good because I got to know him a little bit better. And I spent a lot of time with my friend Noisy Gamer, who I appreciate very much.
We did have a Talking in Stations supporters lunch at one point. Tell them about that, man.
Well, it was put together by January, a Valentine for us, and it was a lunch. It happened after my talk, so I figured, they could ask me questions kind of thing. It was like way overthought, but it was well planned. And so we ended up, we're going to go to Margaritaville, but it turns out that Buffett guy was in town, so we didn't know if that was going to be a big deal. This is hilarious. My son just passed me a note. I think he's saying like, when are you going to be done so I can play Fortnite?
Aw,
Yes.
that's real life, folks, right there in a snapshot.
Excuse me. This just in. Yeah. So anyway, it was a great lunch that we had with supporters, and I think there was a few of us that worked on the program, Carneros and myself and Skeptic, and actually Tatalis as a new guy, he was there too. But we actually had some. This was only for Patreons of a certain level, and so it was really nice to like sit with them and to meet them, and they were super interesting and super nice. That was a real pleasure. It was kind of a nice break from everything too, right? It's like it was quiet. Finally, you could hear yourself think, and it was great. I really enjoyed that. Oh, and Commander Ace was there with us.
Yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
So, we'll do more of that. I don't know. eVegas was a lot of fun this year. Focusing on the actual conference made a difference. I think it felt a little more like a conference than just a giant 3-day party, which was good. All right. I got to yield to my son who wants to play Fortnite. What are you guys going to do? You guys want to stay here and keep going? All right. I guess that's it. We're all out of news, and I did want to make some announcements, but I can make them a different time. But right now, I'd just like to thank all the supporters for Talking in Stations. You guys make things happen for us, and we're happy to be here doing the show. We're going to try to actually ramp up more material. We did do a midweek show with I Choose You, which has turned out to be a really good success, so we'll probably do more of those. And then we'll talk about future plans later on, but I think that's pretty much all we got for this week. All right. We have nothing else, huh? You guys have any comments that you want to put out before we go?
I'm looking forward to next week.
What's next week?
Talking in Stations next Sunday.
All right. That's all we got for this week. We'll see you next week on Talking in Stations.